Oh, good evening, everyone. Tonight we have a closed session. If you would give us the roll, please, Ms. McGuire.
Councilmember Engler,
Here.
Councilmember McNamee,
Here.
Councilmember Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman,
Here.
and Mayor Adam.
I'm here. Ms. Noonan, if you'd announce the closed session.
Yes, thank you. We do have one closed session tonight. It's on pending litigation. Oh my gosh, I can't pronounce the name. Shazbadarzig versus City of Thousand Oaks pursuant to Government Code Section 94956.9A.
Thank you, and we'll be back at 6. All right, and shall we begin? Do we have anything to report from the closed session, Ms. Noonan?
Nothing to report.
All right, well, welcome everyone to our first meeting of the new year. I'm sure we're all rested and ready to go. So if you'd all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please. I believe we have to do the roll call.
Actually, we're okay, Mr. Mayor. We did the roll call in the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, good. Well, we can skip that. Okay, then we're going to go right to our special presentation. Tonight we have David Marin with us to give us a report from Ventura County Civic Alliance. Appreciate you being here, David. David is also the moderator for the League of Women Voters, and anybody who's run for city council is probably well aware of that. You do a great job at that, David, so why don't you go ahead and fill us in?
This will be your turn to cut me off, unlike when I do the forums.
That's right,
So,
that's right.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, members of the staff, and the people of Thousand Oaks. I'm David Marin with the Ventura County Civic Alliance. Every 2 years, we produce the State of the Region report, and this is also available online for free. You can download it at civicalliance.org. I've left a few copies on the front table as well. So a couple of highlights. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We could not go out and share this with the community without the generosity of our sponsors. They're all listed on the inside back cover, but a couple of key ones: the Ventura County Community Foundation, the Ventura County Community College District, Era Energy, AT&T, Channel Islands University, Limoneira, the County of Ventura, and the Port of Hueneme. Grateful to all. So a couple of things I want to start off with, and I'm assuming you can see these on your screens. In the upper right corner is the median age. I like to point this out. Ventura County is getting older, and I'm going to come back to this several times tonight. But if you see back in 2000, the average age was 34.2. It's grown to 38.7. We continually get older, and that has ramifications as we go forward. Each of the city's populations are listed along with the percentage under 18 and the percentage over 65. You can see that Thousand Oaks has a very medium as far as percentage over 65. Other cities have more, some are less. Agriculture, it continues to be a $2 billion industry in Ventura County. It's about 4% of our economy. We do about $600 million worth of strawberries. We ship around the world. You'll be able to learn more as you read through the report. Community engagement, you're all politically elected. I'd like to share the current registration statistics. Blue on your screens up there are Democrats, red is Republican, green is no party preference. Over the many years, the Republican Party has lost percentage in Ventura County, and the no party preference has picked that up. You can see that Thousand Oaks is pretty close to about even as far as registration, a little bit. Simi Valley is actually the only city in Ventura County that has a plurality of Republicans. Some cities have a majority Democrat as well. So a little bit more Democrats here in Thousand Oaks. Nonprofit employment, this slide, just like to show the breadth of the service that is provided to our communities by nonprofits. They represent over 10,000 employees, and I exclude the California University or the Lutheran University, and also the private hospitals that are nonprofits. So just looking at that, you can see $473 million of wages just from the nonprofit sector in Ventura County. Our economy continues to be stable, not growing, but not losing ground. This chart that we're looking at is the employment growth, and just a few highlights. You can read more later, but this is for goods producing. Goods producing includes agriculture, construction, mining. Several of those are very high-paying jobs. Mining pays very well, but there's only about 2,000 or less than 1,000 jobs. Manufacturing is the important one. I'm sure you've talked about it as far as trying to keep Amgen and other companies here. They generate a huge amount of wages. It has been flatlining and declining, but it is starting to come back a little bit. The next screen is the service sector, and this is where most of the job growth, in fact, all of the job growth, has been in the service sector over the last 6-8 years. Unfortunately, some of these jobs are very low paying. They're like hospitality. It's a great entry job, but you cannot afford an apartment in Thousand Oaks working at a motel. But you can look through these a little more. This is the gross county product for Ventura County, and I bring this up to show you that, and these are inflation-adjusted dollars, but that line has been flat for over a decade. We had a little uptick last year. And the challenge is that in the state and the nation, the economy has been growing, some places sizably, but Ventura County has just been flatlining, and that's good that we're not declining, but we need to continue to attract businesses that will help put out great economy and sector work as far as just like Amgen and all the others. So that could be a challenge for our decision maker, policy makers. This next slide, I thought you'd like to see taxable sales. We actually break it out this year by city. So Thousand Oaks continues to have a nice return as far as taxable sales. I think we would all agree that's mostly driven by the auto mall and the malls, the shopping malls. But your average there, $26,000 per resident, is actually pretty good compared to all the other cities. Certainly the ones with auto malls do the best. Tourism is also listed in the report this year as far as showing Thousand Oaks. You're not a coastal community, but you are attracting people. You had a nice increase in 2022 after the pandemic. You can see other cities, and you may be surprised at that number you're seeing for Ojai, but we verified it. That's the Ojai Valley Inn and other places generating huge amounts of transient occupancy tax. In the education sector, I'd like to show this slide because I mentioned at the beginning that we're getting older in Ventura County. Now, this slide is showing the enrollment and projections. The upper line, for those in the audience, is for K through 8, and the bottom line is grades 9 through 12. Back in 2014, we had 97,000 kids in K through 8, and that's down significantly to 82,000, and it'll keep going down if projections are correct. And I do get asked all the time, well, is that from homeschooling? And the numbers are much too significant to be homeschooling. They may have a small part, but it's really because young people are waiting longer to have children, and they're having smaller families, or they're moving out of the area. So our schools are just going to continue to decline. And so what does that look like for Thousand Oaks? This page is showing you Conejo Valley Unified's enrollment. At the top is 2019, when they had about 18,000 students. And in 2022, they're down to 16,000. So Conejo is not going to come to you and ask, can they build a new high school or some new schools anytime soon? The concern might be of even school closures if that continues. I'd like to share this slide because it shows the value of education. Blue are males, green are females, but no matter the amount of education you get, the more you get, the more lifetime earnings you can look forward to. So you can see that a high school graduate, let's use the male, gets about $37,000 on average a year of income, but if they continue and get their bachelor's, double that amount. So over the span of your lifetime, you could be talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you're trying to get your child or grandchild to stay in school, that's a very compelling reason. Let's talk about land use. So home ownership, this chart shows in blue the percentage of people that own their home. Green are the number that rent. And Thousand Oaks is a sizable community as far as percentage of people that own their home, almost 70%. In general, the view is that high ownership translates to people caring about their neighborhoods, taking care of their yards, just a little bit more invested in their local community. On the flip side, it also means there's not enough apartments to go around in a sense. So it's good news for Thousand Oaks, no question. This one is just back in June 2023, the average home price unadjusted for inflation was $928,000. Just extraordinary numbers. Now, of course, those numbers go up and down depending on the month, so we always use June. But the green line there is inflation adjusted. And you can see that actually inflation adjusted prices in Ventura County are actually a little bit lower than they were 15 years ago. But inflation has certainly impacted everything. We have the median home prices there by city you can look at. We also include in that one this number of sales. This chart, though, I'd like to share because you're often asked about developments and looking at apartments. And this is showing the price of a two-bedroom apartment in Ventura County, the upper chart there. That blue line in the upper slide is showing $2,738 for the average two-bedroom apartment. I'm sure many of us remember when that seemed like an extraordinary mortgage, and today it's an extraordinary rent. Why is it so high? Because the landlords are in control. The occupancy rate is 2.9%. There's very little availability of apartments. And if you have children who've looked for an apartment, they'll tell you, I've got to fill out this form and that form, and they want this much income, and it's got to be for 3 years, because landlords can be very selective of who they want to qualify. So shortage of apartments and high pricing, and you can see Thousand Oaks' price for average is $2,700. Good news about solar energy. We've added a lot of solar in Ventura County over the years, about equal to a medium-sized generation plant like that out in, say, the Ormond Beach, for example. Water use by cities. The eastern cities, Thousand Oaks, Westlake, tend to use more water per day per person, probably because you're less dense and you have bigger yards, so people are just using a lot more water out here. Public health, I do want to take a moment to talk about this. This is the declining birth rate in Ventura County. And this is extraordinary because in 1990, we had 12,700 births here. We've grown since then. The population has certainly grown, but in 2021, 20 years later, that number of births dropped to 8,700. That birth rate went from 19 per 1,000 residents to about 10. Now, statewide and nationwide, the birth rate has declined, but Ventura County has declined much more than elsewhere. And this is where we're going to run into trouble, because we're not going to have young people to take some of the entry-level jobs that we need, manufacturing jobs, service jobs, to fill our schools, to take care of us when we get old. So I would politely suggest that policies that the council and private businesses could do to help promote family formation should be considered. Promoting daycare and other things. It's something that we're all going to have to think about. I'll move on to opioid deaths. Here you can see that in Ventura County, we have a very high rate of opioid deaths. This is actually fentanyl that I'm showing. We went from 40 fentanyl deaths in 2019 to 160 just 3 years later. Our rate of fentanyl deaths is even higher than Los Angeles County. We have COVID deaths in here for you. Public safety, we're showing that Ventura County is the safest large county of the 15 largest counties. So congratulations to our captain and sheriffs and chiefs all around. Great work. By city, we have the data for violent crime and also property crimes. You can see how Thousand Oaks is a very safe city, of course. In the social services, homeless numbers, I know you're looking at that all the time, and I'm trying to wrap this up. We have domestic violence along with many other charts here. Thousand Oaks, again, at the lower end of the scale compared to other cities. Again, to remind the audience, you can download this at civicalliance.org. This is a new chart. This shows the amount of people that are working from home. So we've gone from about 4 or 5% to almost 10% over the years. So obviously the pandemic made it a lot easier, and people are taking advantage of it. And this one is a little bit surprising as far as the vehicle miles traveled, that Ventura County highways, and I'll just talk about 101 outside your front door, that the number of vehicle miles in millions declined from pre-pandemic. So 2018 was about 1,400 down to 1,050. So people are driving less. Maybe that's because they're getting jobs closer to home, they're working from home, but other things, it's just not necessary that people are in gridlock as much as they used to be. So I appreciate your time. As I mentioned, the Civic Alliance does this every 2 years. We're a regional nonprofit and very grateful for the opportunity to share this report with you and staff. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but thank you very much.
Questions for David? Mr. McNamee.
Thank you, Mayor. David, great presentation. Thank you as always. Is the reason why the private non-religious, private religious, and the homeschoolers were not being tracked in this study because they're a significant part of our economy? And it would be interesting to see how much of a change they're being affected with the population shift.
So at one time, we included adherents in the various religions, but that data is no longer available that in a way that we can use it. And by the way, all of the data is listed where our sources are in the back of the book, so you can see that. As far as tracking of the students who are in either parochial schools, at-home schools, it's up to how the state puts out the information, and it gets a little sometimes too granular to try and break down every ethnic category, every age band, and some of those things. So I'll make a note of that as far as an interest to see just how much perhaps we could do some other chart, because I do get asked about the homeschool effect. I do believe that charter students are included in these numbers, but I'm not sure about the home students.
The reason I'm concerned and asking for that data is to see if that also, the population trends are impacting private school, non-religious as well as religious, and the homeschooling as well. And perhaps there's a shift because you're listing homeschoolers. I agree with you. There's not many families that can afford to do homeschooling, but many are still moving to parochial and non-religious private schools. And I just wanted to see if that trend was reflective of the shift from public to those, or are they also sustaining the drop in enrollment as well? So thank you. If you can do that in the future at some point. I know it'll be difficult, but if you can, that would be good to know.
Certainly take it under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, David, thank you. Great report. This is a good resource. Shows what's working and shows where we need a little work. So appreciate you coming down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, let us move on to public comments. Ms. McGuire, if you announce that.
This is the time and place for public comments. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. 3 individuals have requested to speak, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. All right, first up is Jim Yarbrough.
Various cities around the world and in the USA have called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. In the USA, here is a partial list of cities that have passed such resolutions: Long Beach, Oakland, and Richmond, California; Seattle, Atlanta, Detroit, Dearborn, Hamtramck, Ypsilanti, Michigan; Providence, Rhode Island; Carrboro, North Carolina; Wilmington, Delaware; Akron, Ohio; Talent, Oregon; and Madison, Wisconsin. Organizations like the International Rescue Committee have also called for a ceasefire. I urge the Thousand Oaks City Council to pass a ceasefire resolution regarding Israel and Gaza. Taxpayer dollars from Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park are funding a humanitarian disaster in Gaza. We cannot continue to do this. Here's a sample resolution. The City Council of Thousand Oaks, California calls on all federal leaders to support negotiations that lead to a lasting humanitarian ceasefire in Israel and Gaza, and for the safe passage of food, water, medical supplies, and other life-saving humanitarian aid into Gaza, and for a peaceful resolution that achieves the protection of life in Gaza and Israel. The resolution might then direct the city clerk to email or mail this resolution to the federal representative and senators for Thousand Oaks and to the President, Vice President, and Secretary of State. According to a Data for Progress poll back in October of 2023, 66% of American voters support a ceasefire in that region. Thank you for considering my request. And I'm Jim Yarbrough from Newbury Park.
Thank you, Jim. Next up, Steve Tarn. Yes? Not on. Let's go to Clint Fultz then.
Hello, my name is Clint Fultz. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks and a member of the Caneo Climate Coalition. We at the Caneo Climate Coalition would like to recognize and acknowledge the achievements of Dr. Helen Cox, who recently announced her forthcoming retirement as Sustainability Division Manager of the City of Thousand Oaks. Dr. Cox and her team have worked relentlessly to move the city's sustainability goals and projects forward, including, and most notably, the current Climate and Environmental Action Plan, also known as the CEAP. The importance of the Sustainability Division cannot be overemphasized. How cities will move towards a cleaner environment and a sustainable future to combat the climate crisis is crucial. Lessening our carbon footprint in any way we can greatly improves our chances to survive in the future. Dr. Cox's focus on climate action planning and its important role in the general plan will help safeguard sustainability and livability in our city for generations to come. We hope the city will fill the Sustainability Division Manager position with a person of equal caliber as Dr. Cox and move rapidly in 2024 to release, review, and execute our Climate and Environmental Action Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you for recognizing Dr. Cox. I believe that's all our speakers, unless Steve Tarn is back? No. All right. Then we're going to move on. Let us go to the consent calendar. Any items to be pulled? All right. I don't hear any. Any speakers? All right. Looking for a motion on the consent calendar. Mr. Engler?
Yes, I'd move the consent calendar as it's written.
Thank you. Vote, please. If you call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Engler?
Yes.
Councilmember McNamee?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman?
Yes.
And Mayor Adam?
Yes.
And that motion passes 5-0.
All right. Thank you. And tonight evening, we have a department report that we're going to move on to. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. We're going to hear from our city manager, Mr. Powers.
Yeah, just brief comment that we are already actively beginning the recruitment process for Dr. Cox's position. She has really been a treasure for us and done some tremendous work. Gave us a long runway in terms of her retirement announcement, so that provides us an opportunity to have her part of the recruitment and selection process for her successor. So looking forward to that, and we'll be hearing items from her before her departure, giving us a chance to say thank you in person.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. And now on to our department report. It will be on the Navigation Center, and Ingrid Hardy and Jamie Boscarino will be giving that report. Ingrid, if you'd like to start.
Sure thing. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm here this evening to present on the Navigation Center and to request City Council's approval of the various governing agreements associated with the Navigation Center. For the past several years, the City Council has had a priority on addressing homelessness. Specifically, for the current year, the City Council's priority includes complete planning and entitlement process for a 30-unit homeless navigation center at the city-owned property on Lawrence Drive and begin operations. Tonight's action concludes the succession of a number of actions that have been taken by the City Council and the Planning Commission over the past 16 months. On this slide is a summary of the measured actions that have been taken to date. Since the last time that city staff reported to the City Council in February 2023, the city has received the State Encampment Resolution Grant of $5.8 million. Staff from a number of different departments have worked diligently with the 3 contracted or proposed contracted partners on the definitive agreements that are before you this evening. And the Planning Commission approved a special use permit for the Navigation Center. As mentioned, there are 3 different agreements before you this evening, which we are calling the definitive agreement. The first one is a lease agreement with Mini Mansions. And part of the scope and responsibility for Mini Mansions includes a 15-year lease at $1 per year. They will ensure that Dignity Moves, along with the city, builds the site in accordance with the improvement plan. They will also ensure that Hope the Mission, the operator, provides services in conformance with the operations agreement. Mini Mansions will be the sole owner of the residential units, the common buildings, amenities, and other identified materials. The city will own the permanent infrastructure on the site. Mini Mansions will also essentially serve as the property manager and will be responsible for the maintenance of the facility's improvement, the open space, and the common areas, and also to maintain positive community relations. And I apologize, I did not advance my slide. So I just gave you a mouthful of what the responsibilities are for Mini Mansions, but here they are on the slide before you. And we also included the lease agreement in the council packet. Next slide, we have our development management agreement, which will be with Dignity Moves. And Dignity Moves will be responsible for managing, arranging, supervising, and coordinating basically the planning, design, and entitlement, permitting, and development of the site. Dignity Moves will also be asked to, or according to their contractual agreement, to procure labor, performance, and material bonds. They will complete the work in conformance with the development budget. They will receive progress payments as the work is completed. They will develop the site in conformance with the improvement plan that was included in your packet, and they will also adhere to the construction schedule. Finally, of the definitive agreements, we have a professional services agreement with Hope the Mission. This agreement is a 5-year term with up to 5 extensions for 1 year each. Hope the Mission will provide baseline supportive services, which I will detail on a future slide in the presentation. They will coordinate with law enforcement and other local agencies on identifying clients for the Navigation Center. They will participate in the county's homeless management information system. They will track various performance metrics and present those metrics to the City Council and the Board of Supervisors on an annual basis. They will maintain positive community relations and, most importantly, create pathways to housing and self-sufficiency. This next slide is the proposed site plan, an overview of the site plan. I have this divided up over 2 slides, so this is not the entirety of the site. I just wanted this to be visible to you on the slide. So I didn't mention in my presentation thus far, but as mentioned in your council packets, the Navigation Center will be developed in 2 phases. So this first phase includes 30 beds. It will accommodate up to 30 participants with the option to expand up to 50 beds or participants in the future. As a reminder, 5 of those beds will be set aside for law enforcement. Okay, here we go. So here we have Lawrence Drive, and then there's a check-in area at the front of the site. And there's a break room and dining areas and meal prep areas, outside dining areas. There's also office space for staff. There's a space identified here for a clinic, and that space will also be dual purpose, where law enforcement will be able to utilize that space as needed. There's also laundry and shower facilities. And then there's an outdoor recreation area here to the left of the screen, and I'm going to advance to the next slide, which shows the back half of the property. So these are the other residential units. I would like to point out that in addition to the 5 beds for law enforcement, there will also be 6 beds that are located in accessible units. And then there will also be 6 beds that can accommodate up to 3 couples. At the back of the property, again, these are the other residential units. And then this part of the site that's sort of grayed out, this is the expansion area, should the city council choose to expand up to 50 beds in the future. Along here, you see the exterior residential storage area, and then there's the dog run in the back of the facility, and then here we have the road or fire lane that runs along the site. The infrastructure on the site will include water, stormwater, sewer, electric, gas, and data lines for the entire site. And this is to avoid any disruption in the future, again, should the navigation center be expanded. And there's also a cost savings by installing all of the infrastructure during this first phase. So the Navigation Center is a low barrier center, and it will be a service-enriched facility. As a reminder, there are no drop-ins allowed at this facility. There will be referral bases only. There are staffing levels and security levels to support a safe environment. So there's 24/7 security personnel along with 24/7 staffing by Hope the Mission. Services include, but are not limited to, case management and housing navigation, meals, transportation, physical and mental health care, employment and benefits services, and the other services that are listed on this slide. And all of these services do not necessarily have to be provided by Hope the Mission. They are able to work with local agencies like County Behavioral Health and other service providers just to ensure that these wraparound services are being provided to the clients. And then before I turn the presentation over to Jamie on the finances associated with the project, I just wanted to remind the council and the public of just what the process is for being admitted into the Navigation Center through the permanent housing. So it starts with outreach. The outreach will be conducted by our local law enforcement, who is aware of individuals who need shelter, as well as our local nonprofits such as Lutheran Social Services and Harbor House. Then the clients are assigned a unit and they're stabilized. And then once they're stabilized, the case managers will create individualized service plans so that they can start getting prepared for permanent housing. So at this time, I will turn the presentation over to Jamie Boscarina, our Finance Director.
Thank you, Ingrid. Good evening, Council. Just to go over construction and operating costs for this project, we'll focus on the construction side first. Staff has worked extensively over the past year with Dignity Moves, who is performing the construction for this site. Although it is a piece of raw land, that does provide a lot of unique challenges for the site because there is nothing there. So everything has to be constructed and installed as part of this project. As Ingrid did mention, we are planning on doing all of the utility work, all the grading, the road, everything for both phases for the eventual expansion in this first phase in order to reduce disruption for the residents if we were to expand, and also to lower the costs of the project by doing it all up front. There is going to be a fire road constructed all the way to the back of the property where we have our existing battery storage facility. There is going to be all of the utilities installed that she mentioned. There are 0 utilities on site. So all of this does add up. The total actual hard costs of the construction for everything is about $3.4 million. So without even considering the units, just the hard cost is about $3.4 million. We are funding some of that, about $370,000, for the eventual food recovery storage facility that is going at the back of the property as well. So those costs, although you see a total amount of over $8 million for the project, about $370,000 of that is going to be covered by the food and recovery storage facility, which will actually, Public Works will bring before council later this spring likely. So we are able to do some cost sharing with that aspect of as well, because the road will go back towards the food recovery storage facility and they will need some utilities back there as well. So total for this actual project is about $7.76 million. As I mentioned, a lot of it is the hard costs for the construction because it is a piece of raw land. Also, we have the units themselves. So the total for the modular units is the living units plus all the extra facilities is about $2.4 million for that, for the actual living units for this phase and all of the extra facilities that are going to be installed as well. So when you come up with all of the costs, we're at the $7.76 million for the actual navigation center. Now, the good news is, as Ingrid mentioned, we did receive a state encampment grant for this. So the construction part of the $5.8 million total grant is $4.1 million. So right off the bat, 4.1 of that cost is covered by the state encampment grant. We also have an approved cost-sharing agreement with the County of Ventura. So they are sharing 50% of the resulting costs after the grant, 50-50 with the city, up to $2 million. So the county's share will be about $1.8 million of this project. So between the grant and what the county is paying for construction, the city's actual cost for this project for all the construction is only $1.8 million. So a very small amount of the total construction cost is actually being borne by the city. So moving on to the operations side of things, of course, we have a lot of services that are being provided to all the residents that will be living there. The services are being provided by Hope the Mission, and most of the cost of the services is the personnel that are going to be on site, right? So there are 24/7 personnel on site for the navigation center. Even when people are sleeping at night, there will be staff present on site in case anything happens. Anybody needs any assistance during the middle of the night. So that's the bulk of the cost of the annual operating budget. We also have food. Food costs are also included. Food is going to be provided every single day, 3 meals a day for all the residents living on site. We will also have 24/7 security on site. So the security for 24/7, 365 days a year is another good chunk of the budget. So most of the budget for operations is the actual on-site personnel, the food, and the security. That total cost for year one, which if we were to open in July, would be July of 2024 to June 2025. So for a year, we don't think we're going to open by July, but if it were that, it would be just under $1.2 million for 1 year of operating costs. Again, the grant is funding a portion of that for the first year and for the second year. The 1 year, it would total about $835,000 from the grant for that $1.2 million. And then again, we have the cost sharing agreement with the county. So the county is splitting half of the cost of the operations as well. So the city share and the county share each for 1 year would be about $168,000 each. So a rather small cost for year one and year two from the city for the operations of the site. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ingrid.
Thank you, Jamie. So just some of the benefits of the Navigation Center is that we will have a year-round shelter operation in Thousand Oaks. Because these are modular units, there's an accelerated timeline to develop the site. The units are also transportable and flexible should we need to relocate these units in the future for some unknown reason. And then also it enhances our enforcement capabilities. So I just want to again mention the state encampment resolution grant. So these dollars help the city to invest in the encampments that we have around town and to provide persons experiencing unsheltered homelessness with interim housing and get them connected to some form of permanent housing, be that with family, relatives, permanent supportive housing, but just to get a permanent situation in place for them. And finally, we have just an abbreviated timeline. I didn't want to bore you with all the details, but just over the next several weeks, the applicant, Dignity Moves, will finalize the construction docs. Then they'll submit those for plan check. They'll bid the work for a general contractor. We'll also have ongoing community engagement throughout, so many mansions, and we'll be working with the city on the community engagement. And then we'll prepare for occupancy as construction is being done between April through October. So that, it, again, includes working with local organizations, with law enforcement. Some of the work that will be taking place on the site is the site prep, grading, excavation, utility installation, et cetera. And we are anticipating that that work should be done by November, in which at that time the city will host a ribbon cutting and participants will begin to move in. So this concludes our presentation for this evening. Available for questions this evening, we have our police chief, Jeremy Paris. We have Cliff Finley, our director of public works, of course, Jamie. We also have Matt Cody on Zoom, who's our outside counsel and helped the city develop the various agreements that are before you this evening. We also have representatives in the audience from Dignity Moves, Mini Mansions, and Hope the Mission. And also online, we have Jen Harkey from the Ventura County Continuum of Care. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid and Jamie, and let's go to questions. Mr. Taylor.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I'll start on the construction side, or maybe it's the finance side. Do we have any protections when it comes to the grant money? In this case, do we control that money, where it goes?
Yes, so the funds were sent directly to the city, so they're sitting in our account right now. And as part of our development management agreement that is before you tonight, there is strict instructions as to the Dignity Moves team would send us their pay app, their invoice monthly. We would have time to review it. We do have a project manager that we have, a retired annuitant, that will be very focused on the project, making sure the work that we are being billed for has actually occurred so that we can ensure that we are giving appropriate money to Dignity Moves to pay for that work. And then we would submit payment to them on a monthly basis.
Okay, great. Second question. So it mentioned that it's a referral-based only program. And then maybe this is a question for our police chief. How does that fit in with just the enforcement of the laws? So something that, and I'll let you kind of speak on this more if you want to, something that's hard is if we don't have beds available, then if somebody's living on the streets, they can stay there, correct? If this is a referral-based program, do the beds available help you enforce the law, or is it more we now just have something to offer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does help us. The two laws that are controlling this, the Boise case and the Grants Pass case, there's no specificity about whether it's referral-based or how that shelter program works. The important part is that we have some place for them to go, alternative from breaking the law, basically.
Okay. And then last question, we're back to finance. Sorry, I should have asked the finance question first. So for the grant, it looks like a portion is going towards construction, a portion is going towards operating expenses.
That's correct.
And then the operating expenses are covered for 2 years, correct?
Yeah, the total is about a little over 800,000 per year, so about 1.6, 1.7 million of the grants for operations.
And then so for year 3 or moving forward past or beyond year 2, what's our plan there?
Right, so we are hoping that with all of these projects that cities throughout the state are constructing, that there will be funding in the future from the state to continue funding operations of these navigation centers of permanent supportive housing. So that's our hope. But if that funding is not there, the county is continuing to fund 50% of the operating costs because of our cost sharing agreement. So potentially our share would be maybe 700,000 at that point. And we would make sure as we develop our budget that we find funding for that.
So best case scenario, a new grant opens up that we can tap into. Worst case scenario, we continue in the 50-50 share with the county. And as far as our finances go, we feel comfortable that we can continue floating that.
Yes.
Is the way to say it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just to put a finer point on that, Councilmember Taylor, as Jamie mentioned, the state of California has funded a number of grants and programs associated with homelessness. Most of them have been oriented towards construction and initial operations. And so it stands to reason that they're not going to want to see these investments evaporate. And so our advocacy at the League of California Cities level has been very clear. And if you've watched previous legislative cycles, you know it usually takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years of strong advocacy to get some ongoing funding stream. And so I think our positioning here, and we have, I think, a good reason to be optimistic, our positioning is we will have these investments locally. And so we'll stands to reason that we would be eligible to take in those funds. That said, we've maintained a strong partnership with the county so that in the worst case scenarios you identified, we're looking at a 50-50 split as we move forward. I would argue a much more efficient utilization of taxpayer dollars than what we are doing today, and which is, I think a lot of folks don't realize that we are expending a lot of funds, whether it's law enforcement funds or public works cleanup funds, to do that.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. Following up on Councilmember Taylor's question about auspices and pretexts, does the city retain ownership of this property throughout?
Yes, so the city retains ownership of the land and any infrastructure that is included as part of this construction. So all of the utilities that are overlaid, the roads, all of that type of infrastructure. Many mansions will just be leasing the property from us. I think it's a 15-year lease, but the city maintains ownership.
Great. And similarly, I read the 3 development agreements as being between the city on one hand, right, and the 3 partners, right? But it's with the city, it's not with some other agency.
That is correct.
Right, very good. So then my last question would be then, I'm not expecting there to be a problem. These are folks we've worked with, and they've been good partners. But if there were some issue, it is the city that would have enforcement power to come in and say, hey, something's not going right here. We need to fix this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Engler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you so much for the presentation. And it's nice to see us at this point in our journey along this path. You mentioned that the entry into this facility is a low barrier housing first model. Can you go a little bit into that rationale and thought?
Sure. So one of the requirements to receive state and federal funding is that you have low barrier and you use housing first principles. So with low barrier, that means that, we can't have any sort of restrictions in place that will prevent the clients from admittance, be it a pet, or if they have a substance use history, or other reasons. We want to make this an opportunity for people to receive housing and services so that they can move into permanent supportive housing.
But there will be rules and whatnot for everybody to follow there?
Yes, 100%. There will be rules on site. The clients will have to sign a contract. And then, I'm more than happy to bring up Hope the Mission, who can talk about how they work with their clients through those contracts to ensure that they are following the rules.
And this is different than our other effort over at the Quality Inn. That's going to be permanent supportive housing. This is a navigation center. Can you define the difference between those two?
Sure, of course. So the Navigation Center is considered temporary or interim housing, and it's designed to be on an emergency basis. And so the goal is to move the participants from a temporary emergency sort of housing into permanent supportive housing. Where the 2 sites, I would say, have similarities is that there are wraparound services provided on each of the sites. There's 24/7 staffing, there's 24/7 security. But the Navigation Center is like it's temporary. It's for crisis purposes and to get people stabilized and paper or document ready so that they can move into permanent housing.
Thank you. And Ms. Mayor, just one more side question here. In reading through some of the information you presented to us, it talks about the matrix and the performance standards that they will have to meet, both in the construction and in the management of the location. As far as the mission of Hope, the mission, there's standards for that as well. And maybe this is a better question for them, but it mentions a 30-day optimum period to try to move people into more permanent housing, and a 6-month window that everybody should be moved out of there. Is that the experience at some of the other facilities, or is that a aspirational goal?
So I'm going to have Jen Harkey chime in on your question, Councilmember Engler, but I will say that there's, first of all, in our municipal code, there is a 6-month limit for emergency shelter stays. Also, within the county, because we don't have the number of permanent housing units to support individuals moving from interim or temporary housing into permanent housing, sometimes it can take a little bit longer. I'll pause there and see if Jen Harkey would like to add any additional context.
Thank you, Ingrid, and thank you for the question, Council Member. I would just explain that with emergency shelters or interim housing, as we call it, our goal is really a 90-day stay. It's temporary, and like Ingrid explained, our goal is to complete the documentation to help our clients get into supportive housing. There are ways to work with clients on what we call a diversion strategy. And diversion looks like potentially treatment options or sober living or connections to family or friends who may be local or even outside of the county. We try to do our best to work on a housing plan, whatever that may look like, with clients. As far as the countywide average, right now, because of our low vacancy rate, as was mentioned earlier in the Civic Alliance update, we have about a 2% vacancy rate to be able to connect clients to housing other than supportive housing projects. So the limitations there really restrict any movement, and our advocacy with United Way, Landlord Engagement Program, and other ways to secure more housing options for people is really what the continuum of care continues to work on as well. Our average across the county is around 180-day stays, and so we continue to work with clients. It doesn't mean that at the 6-month mark that they'll be returning to the streets. As long as someone is working on a housing plan and working with case management, that is the goal.
So that 6-month deadline may be a flexible deadline for those folks who are making progress but haven't quite made the necessary steps to move on? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. McNamee.
Thank you, Mayor. This would be for Chief Paris. Give you a moment to step up to the microphone. Thank you, sir. I want to dovetail on the questions Councilmember Taylor had. Could you paint a picture verbally as to how those 5 beds being available would benefit the people of Thousand Oaks and the homeless that reside here?
Well, they'd be an option. So if we come across someone that's sleeping somewhere in violation of a city ordinance, the question would be posed to them, they either have to leave there or we have housing for them.
And if they don't accept the housing, what happens?
Well, they have the choice either to leave or to accept the housing. If they refuse to leave, it'd be like a violation of the ordinance arrest. If they're on private property, it could be a trespassing arrest.
Okay, and then they would be off to county jail for processing, is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. And the idea of 5 beds, is that, in your opinion, adequate to address? Because I would think with what we have, 250, 300, 350 homeless in Thousand Oaks, is that 5-bed availability adequate to cover what occurs?
The experience around the county has been, that's what some of the other agencies have done, has been working for them. Yeah, our officers that'll be doing this, it's a complicated enforcement because of the case law, so we only use like specially trained officers to do it. Really, that will be adequate for whatever enforcement operations they're doing, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Mayor?
Thank you. Jeremy, could you stay there for just a minute? I wanted to ask you, pardon me. So we have a couple of encampments around the city, and some of them are a bit of a distance from what we're talking about tonight. Is that going to be a challenge to get people to move out of their neighborhood, so to speak?
We're routinely cleaning up encampments, especially at places that are like hard to access or impacting watersheds or things like that. And this is within the city. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I know there is transportation that's included with the plans for this shelter, so I don't foresee that being an issue.
Okay. And you would, if you approach somebody in a tent, you would take them over physically?
Yeah, so the process hasn't been fully developed by us, but the process will be basically an intake screening. It'll go through the county continuum of care, just like services do now. So that's all coordinated. They call it the coordinated entry system, so that's all coordinated. But our deputies are already doing that for the services that they're offering to people now. So this is not like an unfamiliar process for us. We're already doing that for the other services we offer.
What's the general reaction by these folks?
Right now, the feedback I'm getting through my officers is they're excited to have some housing options.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, we anticipate there'll be some that don't want to go anywhere, and they want to go where they want to go and do what they want to do. But there's quite a few that do want a housing option.
Good. So they're aware that this is pending?
Oh, they're paying very close attention, yes.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear that. Thank you. I did have one other question. Yeah, I'm a little unclear on this 180 days. Is that you probably may have already answered this and I missed it. Is that a cutoff, or is that what the county on average takes to place somebody in permanent housing? Because it seems to me this has to be interim housing, because there has to be a turnover.
Right.
As new people become homeless, they need to have a place to go, and the ones here need to have a place to be placed.
Yes, so I would say that it's both, Mayor. One is driven by the municipal code, which we do plan to process a municipal code amendment. So currently that limits emergency shelter stays to 6 months, but it's also based on just like the amount of time that it takes to, on average, to find permanent housing. So as Jen Harkey mentioned, as long as someone is working towards their house, like they're actively engaged with their housing plan, they will be able to continue their stay. So hopefully as we bring on more units online and we have more landlords sign up for the landlord engagement program and more housing options become available, we're able to turn over those beds more quickly.
Yeah, I could see the other side of the equation is the permanent supportive housing. We've got to have that to offer as well. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If there's no further questions, do we have any public speakers on this item?
No, we do not.
We do not? All right. Any other staff comments?
No.
And any other questions from the council? If not, like to entertain a motion or discussion. Mr. McNamee?
I'd like to move Department Report 12A, recommendation by staff 1 through 9.
All right, thank you. We do have a motion on the table. Would you call for the vote, please, Ms. McGuire?
Councilmember Engler?
Yes.
Councilmember McNamee?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman?
Yes.
And Mayor Adam?
Yes.
And that motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Powers?
Yeah, I couldn't let the moment pass here without taking a minute just to signify this occasion and the years of work that have gone behind this, but most importantly, the leadership of our Assistant City Manager, Ingrid Hardy, bringing it to fruition. A lot of people supporting behind that, law enforcement, Jamie Boscarino, our finance director, our partners in the audience that are going to see us build this facility out, our public works team to help identify the site and work creatively. This has really been a lift across the board, and our local nonprofit providers have been there with us throughout. But for this city council, this is a really important juncture we have here. This is the first substantive investment in an actual navigation center that will allow for some additional enforcement efforts for us. And so this is a important milestone, and I think we're all very much looking forward to the fall when we can hopefully have the facility operational. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to our partners for being willing to come along on this journey with us. And we're looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely. This is a first for the city, and that grant we received is called the Encampment Resolution Funding, and that's exactly what this is. It's an alternative to an encampment, and those are problematic for our citizens and problematic for the people that are living in those encampments. It's not, they shouldn't be there. They need a better lot in life, and we're going to provide it. Thank you. All righty. Oh, okay. Gee, this is going by so quickly. The next issue is the committee assignments, which we do annually. It's kind of a process we go through, and like any city, we have a lot of committees, whether they're internal committees, finance audit, capital improvement, the downtown master plan. We have also commissions that council members serve on: Ventura County Transportation Commission, Ventura County VCOG, Ventura County
Organization of Governments.
Organization of Governments, thank you. I was only on it for 8 years, I should know that. Economic Development Collaborative, and so, you know, we place our council members each year, and I hope everybody was placed in a situation where they can do the most good. And if there's no discussion, I'd like to entertain a motion on that.
I'd like to move 15A as staff recommendations 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. McNamee. If call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Engler?
Yes.
Councilmember McNamee?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newman?
Yes.
And Mayor Adam?
Yes,
And that motion passes 5-0.
thank you. All right. Mr. Powers, any final comments?
Thanks, Mayor Adam. Relatively efficient meeting for your first one back in the
Certainly
mayor's
was.
chair. We will be back here in 2 weeks on the 30th. We'll be doing a special presentation to recognize our Cal Lutheran women's soccer team for their great achievement last year. And our main report item will be a Community Development Department update, like you heard last year. It'll be a comprehensive overview of what we've done over the last year, and really, more importantly, what's coming in the year ahead.
Mayor, I have a request of you. You've done such a wonderful job at this first meeting of the year. We got out of here in an hour, that I'd like to compliment you on it, and I hope this is more to come. We've done a straw poll, and we all are in favor of a quick meeting. Thank you, sir.
Well, it's very generous of you. Thank you. All righty. Well, as we do every January, I want to adjourn this meeting in memory of Mayor Emeritus Alex Fiore passed away January 3rd of 2002. And as our community starts this new year together, we remember one of our city's all-time great leaders, Mayor Emeritus Alex Fiore. If ever there was a gentleman who could legitimately be called Mr. Thousand Oaks, it was Alex. Alex was elected in 1964 as a member of the original city council and retired in 1994 after 30 years of community service, including 6 terms as mayor. He was a founding father and major contributor to the city's master plan as chairman of the finance committee. And just about every aspect of the community has his touch on it, from Wildwood Mesa to the malls. His name has been placed on our community baseball fields, affordable housing complex, and our teen center. Alex was an innovator with extended vision for our Ring of Green and our public open space, our traffic circulation, our housing needs, our parks, and even the building that we sit in right now. He believed in self-supporting and a fiscally sound community with a balanced budget every year, a standard which maintained by the city to this day. And most Saturdays, Alex would be found at his card table at the Jan's Marketplace, answering questions and listening to concerns and even helping with residents' taxes. Alex passed away in 2002, having lived a full life, and to his family and friends, Alex's commitment, his leadership, and passion for public service is an integral part of Thousand Oaks' history and future and won't ever be forgotten. Thank you, Alex. And we will adjourn this meeting till our next meeting on January 30th.